Jen Psaki on Monday announced that the United States will have a diplomatic boycott of the Beijing Winter Olympics. Let's dive in.
As you can hear the chants from the crowd. Let's go, Brandon.
White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said that U.S. athletes will compete and will have our full support in Beijing this upcoming Winter Games, but added that we will not be contributing to the fanfare of the Games. U.S. diplomatic or official representation would treat these games as business as usual in the face of PRC's egregious human rights abuses and atrocities in Beijing. And we simply can't do that, Psaki told reporters during Monday's briefing. We have a fundamental commitment to promoting human rights, and we feel strongly in our position, and we will continue to take actions to advance human rights in China and beyond. Biden this week actually plans to host a White House summit called the White House Summit for Democracy, where he's going to host about, I believe it's a bit more than 100 different countries, leaders who are all for the forwarding of democratic societies, all for continuing democratic principles throughout the world and trying to put an end to China's bureaucracy and China's just authoritarian dictatorship type of rule where they can do whatever they want. We're going to get into everything that they're doing, and it's abhorrent. Everything that they're doing is just absolutely terrifying. His officials said that Biden intends to announce both individual and collective commitments, reforms, and initiatives to defend democracy and human rights at home and abroad. This might be the first signs of a possible war with China. And I was saying this before, I've said this many times. More recently, China is our biggest threat. China is the one that we're the most in competition with. China is the one that we are saying, hey, we don't agree with what you're doing, we don't agree with your principles, we don't agree with anything that you're doing. The way that they're treating the Uyghur Muslims is ridiculous. China created camps, and they're the size of Nazi internment camps. They house more than 6 million people, and these are work camps. They're putting all of these Uyghur Muslims who are just in China because of the proximity and just how close it is right there, and they're putting them in internment camps. They're enslaving these people and making them do work for China. And the big reason why the United States chose to do this diplomatic boycott is that China is saying, hey, look at all of the economic innovation that we've got. Look at all the economic development. But it's off of slave labor. It's off of these Uyghur Muslims who have no choice. They get their bodies harvested, their organs. They get all of these inhumane treatments. They barely eat. They can barely do anything. It's worse than Australia. It's worse than their internment camps of quarantine internment camps. My next issue is that we are so reliant on China, and in reality, we need to think about this. Why are Nike shoes cheap enough to buy? Why are Apple iPhones cheap enough to buy, and MacBooks and whatever? It's because of slave labor. It's because the Uyghur Muslims and all these other people are doing this work for pennies. The Muslims, they're not getting paid anything. They were entrapped and they were forced into these camps, and they got to do all this work for nothing. They get their bodies cut up and given to people without their choice. This is completely inhumane treatment, and I'm glad that somebody's finally standing up to them. I never thought that Biden would be the one to do it, but I'm glad that this administration is actually saying something and saying, hey, China, we do not appreciate what you've been doing for the past years. We don't appreciate your style of lead, and it's just terrible. It's a stain on our world. I don't know how we've put up with this for so long. It's our reliance, but we need to be done with that. We cannot rely on China anymore. And I'm glad that we're putting a line in the sand and we're saying, screw you. The Senate Foreign Relations Committee Chairman Robert Menendez, a Democrat from New Jersey, called the diplomatic boycott a necessary step to demonstrate our unwavering commitment to human rights in the face of the Chinese government's unconscionable abuses. He called on other allies and partners that share our values to join with the United States in this diplomatic boycott. That's a quote from him. Exactly. We need to stand together and say that China is our biggest enemy. I don't want to be hyperbolic. I don't want towards the Democrats. We need to work together. This country is better when we are together. We can figure out a lot of other stuff. We have arguments that make sense. I understand some arguments that you guys make. We need to come together and figure out a solution because we need to be competing with these companies. We need to be able to provide for ourselves so that way we're not reliant on slave labor. Okay, and illegal immigration, I'm sorry, just is not the answer. We can figure out how to make this stuff cheaper just by investing in this stuff, by spending the time and the effort that we need to put into this sort of stuff. That we need to be coding more. We need to be doing more so that way we can benefit ourselves in the future in our fight to China, because China will come here one day. China is going to fight us, and it might come sooner than we expect. Biden, this might be his way of getting right back into the military-industrial complex. We might go to war with China. How scary is that? Because at this point, we are a mess. And we need to come together, and we need to figure some stuff out. We need to know how to compete with other countries because we've lost our way. We've lost an ability to just compete against these countries. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian accused U.S. politicians of grandstanding over the issue of not sending country representatives to attend events that China hopes will showcase its new technologies and its economic development. Exactly. We do not want to stand up for that. We're standing up against it. This is somewhat playing out like what happened against the Nazis, but it's somewhat shaping up like that, where a lot of people are getting sick and tired of hearing about this stuff in China. They were bolting people's stores shut when COVID was happening, not letting them out, not letting them do anything. They were killing people who were infected. And there was reports this week that they apparently had the antibodies to resolve this issue, but they withheld it from everybody. Again, withholding information and withholding stuff from other countries. This seems like biological warfare. Everything that China has done over the past 30 years has been to screw us over. Everything that they have done over the past since we've been working with them has been to try to get at us and try to be better than us and try to take us over because they want to be the biggest world power there's ever been. Speaking to reporters at a daily briefing, Zhao said such a move, the boycott, would be an outright political provocation, but gave no details on how China might retaliate. Without being invited, American politicians keep hyping the so-called diplomatic boycott of the Beijing Winter Olympics, which is purely wishful thinking and grandstanding, Zhao told reporters at the daily briefing. If the U.S. side is bent on going its own way, China will take firm countermeasures, said Zhao. The diplomatic boycott comes as the U.S. attempts to stabilize turbulent relations with Beijing, even as it maintains a tough approach toward trade and conflicts over China's actions on Taiwan, human rights, Hong Kong, and the South China Sea. CNN was first to report that an announcement was expected this week. Beijing has mounted a stiff response to all U.S. criticisms, denouncing them as interference in its internal affairs, slapping visa restrictions on United States citizens and United States politicians who would be entering the country for any type of work or any type of facilities that they need to be a part of. It wasn't clear who the U.S. might have sent to Beijing to account for that. Zhao's comments appeared to indicate that China will no longer be inviting us for anything. And I'm good with that. I no longer want to be working with China. Australia has also come out and agreed with the United States. They used to have ties with China, but those relationships pretty much nosedived because of a bunch of disputes. They've also raised the possibility of joining the diplomatic boycott. I would like to point out that Australia has Howard Springs quarantine facility, where their military is literally pulling people off of the street and saying they're not allowed to quarantine at home and must be watched and masked 24/7. I posted a video this week on Instagram of this woman who had been forced to go to the Howard Springs facility, and the officers came to her door and told her that she could either get in what she called a divvy van and pay a $5,000 fine, or to give the illusion of choice, would have to order a cab to go to this quarantine camp where she has to follow strict guidelines, can only eat the food that they provide her, and has to be watched 24/7. This isn't. When it gets to that point, when it gets to Australia saying this is not our right, we need to say no to this, you know it's a problem. And I'm glad that we're taking that stand. Thank you for joining me today. If you like this video, leave a like and comment down below something you think I should have mentioned. Subscribe and turn on our notifications so you never miss an episode. And click the video in the box to watch our last episode.